My name's Steve Drabeck, and I'm the guest services coordinator for Idaho 2Fly. And for some of you, and I think I've seen most of you at the retreat, or not the retreats, but the sessions we've had, we're an organization to help men with cancer. We're a nonprofit organization, and so we're out there working with guys that have some issues with cancer and deal with that. We have 3 retreats a year that we send them on, and get them out. And kind of, as you guys know, as fly fishermen, when you're fly fishing, you're not thinking about your cancer. You're thinking about something else. And so it gives them a chance to just kind of get away from that. We have some, speaking of we are a nonprofit. We've got a couple events coming up. We've got Idaho Gives that's coming up here in May. And then we also have our 2Fly Derby. And I think some of you have been on our 2Fly Derby. Yep. And so it's there's some handouts back there and gives you a little bit more information of who we are, but also on our derby. So if you have a chance, I'd encourage you to participate in that. It's quite the deal. We go out to a lake that's off of Linder, and it's a private lake, and you'll catch some really big bass and also some trout. It's quite the deal.
2 lakes this year.
2 lakes. Yep, we're going to have 2 lakes this year. We're going to work on. Exactly. So let me, pardon me?
The Cincy Lake.
The Cincy Lake, yep. So let me go ahead and start with introductions. Like I said, my name is Steve Drabeck, and work for the Idaho 2Fly group. And I'll start over here with
Jim Smith. I've been volunteering for, almost 2 years now?
Rich Smith, I'm a volunteer as well. I also do fundraising for the organization.
I'm Joe. I need to go back and stop volunteering when I went back to Boston. And I came back 5 years ago, and I kind of need to go back into it.
welcome back.
Well, I'm Jim. I guess this is the 3rd or 4th time and being welcomed very kindly by all of you in this group. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm Becky. I'm damage control. I'm Kate.
Ray Argello, I'm one of the volunteers, 500 Fly.
Ken Bell, I'm a volunteer and fishing friend at a number of the retreats.
I'm Angus, and this is my first time here. Just trying to be supportive.
Okay, welcome.
My grandfather.
I'm Brian Howard. I'm a new member of the club, and they're here to support me.
Okay.
Keith, son, thanks for having us.
Okay.
My name is Jim Ryan Bishop. I'm the son of Aaron Bishop Jr. It's my first time meeting with you.
Okay, welcome.
Aaron Bishop, you volunteer.
Rick Foster, first time checking in.
Glad to have you.
Rick Ramondi, first time.
Glad to have you.
Cordiak, first time. John Kinovich, first time volunteer.
Okay.
Dave Page, 2nd year, and Bud Tyer, volunteer.
Okay.
Jack Costello, volunteer.
Okay, Jack.
Yeah, Mike Rath. I was a guest participant in one of the retreats last summer.
Wes Scribner, been a volunteer forever.
Okay.
James Rovig, I'm a new guy.
Okay.
Jerry Schwanberg, I'm a volunteer fishing friend.
Ron Compton, visitor here to win the mountain bike up front for fishing.
We're going to be auctioning that off here in a little bit. I didn't tell Mike that. He doesn't know that, but we're going to.
I should have brought my wife's bike.
There we go.
I'll bring it to your vehicle.
All right, well, welcome. And for the guys that are new, the first time, we've got in our folders back there, the little trifolds. It's a schedule for when we're going to meet in the next several weeks. So we've got, and give you the names of the various topics that we're going to have. So hopefully you'll come back and participate in some of those.
Steve, just talk about the webpage. A lot of information on the webpage.
Yep, there's a lot of information on Idaho2Fly.org webpage, and also on our Facebook. We're constantly updating information on our Facebook, and you can get on our Facebook, Idaho 2Fly Facebook.
I like you guys just email me.
Pardon me?
I like when you just the emails goes out.
And the emails work out easy. I mean, that makes it even easier, for sure. Well, let me introduce our speaker tonight. Mike McLean, he lives up in McCall, and this is his passion. He absolutely, we were talking a little bit before the class, and he's got a real passion for the fishing up here at High Mountain Lake. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you.
my friend.
Thank you. All right, well, good evening, everybody, and everybody here, and everybody who's going to maybe get to watch this on the taping. So my name's Mike McLean. I live in McCall. A little bit about me. You probably have all heard of the term military brat. Well, I was a park brat. My dad was a National Park Service ranger. I grew up in national parks all my life. I know, I'm still getting over it. But Yosemite was my most favorite place of all, because I was at that age that I was allowed to be trusted to go into the backcountry, and a lot of the time by myself, which is why I'm still so comfortable about doing solo trips to this day. So on the next, so a lot of what I want to share with you today is not just about, you know, what it takes to fish high mountain lakes, but about what we want to take away from it. To me, it's more about the experience and the memories, and I have busted my butt many times, gone into a lake that I caught little or nothing, but it was some of the best times of my life. And I'm talking about recently. McCall has, they say, in the neighborhood of 450 lakes within 50 miles. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there. One of the other things that I learned early on in starting and doing this presentation, I've been doing it about 6 years, 7 years now or so, and it's evolved as time has gone, is that a lot of people think that the only people who can fish high mountain lakes are, you know, billy goats and Sherpas, you know. So hopefully this evening I'll be able to enlighten you a little bit more about the potential for high mountain lakes for everybody, regardless of your physical capability or your just sheer grit, desire, and how much pain you want to go through to get in there. So, and so that's kind of why I just added this quote today, because I saw it on Facebook yesterday. I would probably change it a little bit, but in all fairness, I wanted to give credit where credit's due. It's the peace of mind that you take home. To me, it's the experience that you take home, you know, what you see, what you smell. And this view right here was after I busted hump, after coming out 8 miles of cross country, and right before I got to my vehicle, it started to mist and rain, and the rainbow started happening. And it's like, you know, to me, this is what a lot of it is all about. So this is my rig. My wife and I own a couple of these Hobie Outback kayaks. There are a lot of lakes in Idaho, or all over, I mean really, Oregon, Montana, whatever, that you can drive to, that you can drop your kick boats in, you can drop your kayaks in, you can drop your float tubes in, you can get right there. So you don't need to have to be that person that is that billy goat or that person who's going to be an extremist. So do the next slide.
The thing now I'm using is my SUP.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another popular thing now. The SUPs, the stand-up paddle boards, that, you know, they've got those in backpackable fashion now. And I know a guy in McCall who backpacks his SUP and just strictly the SUP high mountain lakes. He doesn't fish. He just likes to get away from all the people. So this is an example of my rig basically loaded for everything. For drive-up lakes, for mountain biking, for backpacking. This was a 9-day trip I took into the Sierras. And this is an example of some of the benefits that we've got on some of these different watercraft. Our kayaks have got these pop-in wheels. We can drag them right down to the water, load them up, pop the wheels back into the back of the rig, and be out there. So this is Granite Lake. We love going there. We don't catch a lot of fish there, but we sure enjoy the time there, the sunsets, being able to be on the kayaks, and 9 times out of 10, this is the view we've got and nobody else around. So that's our buddy on the back of my wife's kayak in that example there. So again, what I like about this particular product, and if you haven't ever checked out the Hobie Outbacks, these are great because you can pedal them or paddle them. And what we thought was just going to be a day of getting wet at Payette Lake in McCall and demoing a bunch of kayaks, we didn't even know these things even existed. So after going and getting wet, we turned around the next day and we ordered 2 of them, okay? And what's so nice is you can pedal them and you've got the hands free. So I can fish to the rises, I can set the rudder, I can work the shoreline. I mean, and you know, as I get older, as much as I'm in denial of that, some people will tell me, you know, if you don't have the shoulder strength or whatever, you can pedal them and you can paddle them and be very comfortable. If you have a problem with your knees, my wife's had 2 replaced and a hip replaced, then you can paddle if you're having to take care of that other part of your body and still be able to get out on the water and enjoy it. So, and again, I mean, when I get the kayaks off the truck, I don't even get it to the water and the dog is already climbing on it, okay? It's like you're not leaving me behind, okay? We still put a life jacket on her in case I need to help her get on, because every now and then there's that deer that jumps and she decides to jump and, you know, go swimming or have to go do a pee break, check pee mail as we say. So, and yeah, that's my buddy. You know, I don't go very many places without her. So, and this is what we're out there for. You know, the rewards. You know, rookies. I mean, these are all fish that I've caught and I've been able to take pictures of. You know, so very happy about that. Bare necessities. You need to click again. You know, rain jacket, water and snacks, dirty footwear. I can't stress enough, and you know, after the presentation, if you want to see the difference of 2 seasons of footwear decomposing and the importance of getting a good, strong footbed, footwear is really important in Idaho because we've got a lot of really rough terrain. Polarized sunglasses, sunscreen, you know, bug spray, you know, all the other, you know, goodies. So. This is an example of my backpack going into a group of 6 lakes. I love going into a group of lakes because I can set up a base camp and then I can spend time day hiking or whatever to the other lakes. So on the next one, this is everything that's in that pack. Okay? Tent. My waders used to be this size. This is that float tube right there, okay? 3.2 pounds. My tent. As much as I'm anti-technology, this is my technology cubby right here. I'm changing my booties. These weigh too much, okay? This is everything that I hauled in on that trip for 5 days. And yes, please, any questions you have during, I mean, I'm here for it, so.
What are the winning numbers to tonight's lottery?
They're in the car. Yeah.
I think you briefly explained your technology, and I was wondering if you had any search and rescue devices.
I do, and good click there. So, this is my 4 Patriots solar power charging bank. This is my lifeline. And the reason I went to something like that, and it has proven to be very effective, you can go online, forpatriots.com. I highly recommend this because this piece of equipment right here can charge my GPS Garmin 66i, which I highly recommend. It can charge my phone. It can charge my headlamp. All right? I can't tell you how many times I've gone in with a headlamp with batteries and the button got pushed and I get there and I've got dead batteries. And I didn't bring any extra batteries because they were fully charged before I hiked in that day, and they were lighting up the inside of my pack. Okay? So I like the rechargeable headlamp, but you know, when all this stuff other fails, this is still really a good piece of equipment right here.
It's an outstanding piece of equipment.
All right? It doesn't require any batteries. And this, with a map, I can still find my way out of, I would like to believe, anywhere or into anywhere. All right? So I still always keep a compass. But my Garmin, I'll tell you a story about the Garmin. I thought I could get into this group of lakes. It was only about 5 miles in, and I'm thinking, okay, I can typically hike on a trail about 2 miles per hour. Still, okay? It was cross country. I did not make it, okay? I had enough water to make the night. I threw my bag down. I pulled out that Garmin and I sent my wife a text through satellite to say I'm not making it to the lake. Here's where I'm at. And I was very new at the Garmin technology at the time. Unbeknownst to me, and this is that dumb thing that some of us can do very effectively, when I sent her that text and email, I also sent her a link. And she was able to see within 10 feet where I was on that mountain ridge that night. She knew exactly where, she probably knew more about where I was than I knew where I was, okay? Satellite imagery, she knew exactly where I was that night. Because I've done a lot of solo tripping, what I love about the Garmin is the in-reach function. And even if you aren't doing solo trips, consider this to be a really good piece of your equipment. The in-reach is an emergency signaling system that will reach any emergency responders anywhere in the world, barring the countries that don't allow this to come into it. Okay? So even if I were driving from here to Nevada and I saw one of you with a blown out tire and not a good spare, I could go into InReach and send a signal and they would send a tow truck or somebody to come and rescue you at no charge. I could be out in the middle of nowhere and see from a lightning storm from the night before some smoke coming up. I can call it in at no charge, okay? I can be injured and they're going to send in an emergency team, a rescue team to come and rescue me. If I'm somewhat capable of still moving, it will send a 10-minute increment pinging on where I'm moving because maybe I think I can get to the nearest road, okay? The InReach feature to me and to my wife was a huge peace of mind, okay? Yes.
Mike, on your Garmin, do you still require the 3 or 4 satellites to be able to link up? Or was that figured away? I have one of those back from the 90s. I never even touched it yet.
Anytime I click on the satellites that are available, I see no less than a dozen of them floating by, the world above me, and you can watch them come in and out. I've never been out of satellite range at all. So to me, it's just a huge peace of mind, whether you're going by yourself, which is even better, or even if you're going with a group. And there's lots of other benefits and features of the Garmin. I like the 66i. It's rated as one of the best of the options that they have. because it's more rugged, it's waterproof, you can drop it in the water, you can take it back out. I wouldn't, go scuba diving with it, they don't recommend that. But it's very, very versatile and very durable.
So is that a phone as well as a text as well as a...
No, it's just an SMS texting and inReach capability. I can get weather reports on it. I bought the little micro card, whatever they call that, and I've got the Northwest, the whole Northwest United States satellite, imagery, topo, everything. I mean, it will literally tell me if there's a lake hidden over that ridge, which I kind of like, because that's what I'm out seeking a lot of the time.
Is that a subscription monthly?
Yeah, you can turn it on and off as you need it. I go for the annual subscription, even though I don't use it much in the winter. That way I don't ever have to worry about turning it on or off if I want to grab it and go snowshoeing or something.
What's the battery life?
The battery life, depending on what the function is on it, it's pretty good. Typically 2 to 3 days, depending on how much you're using it, how much you're doing the SMS texting and stuff. But I just won't ever be without it anymore.
What's the difference between that and the inReach?
Well, the inReach is part of the Garmin system.
Well, we've got an inReach Mini.
Right.
Does it have pretty much the same functions this does?
Yes. Yeah, the inReach Mini has everything that this has, but this has a whole lot more because you have all your GPS and satellite, and you can do tracking. You can save your trails going in. And this group of lakes that I went into is being completely cross country. I can save that and have it downloaded, and I can put it onto a topo map, and I could walk that same trail again. And I can load it in, or I can actually repeat the trail again on the Garmin, and it'll tell me exactly where to go the second time.
Can you text? Do you have to text on that device, or can you text through your cell phone?
You have to text on that device, but there are cell phone capabilities that you can do some stuff on your cell phone that goes through the Garmin.
All the new inReach is Bluetooth to your cell phone.
Yeah.
Like I say, mine is.
I just try not to take my cell phone with me any more than I have to, although I did here. Yeah, you can do the inReach. I mean, I have the inReach also loaded into my cell phone if I wanted to use that.
You still have to scroll the numbers, like, the inReach. I think you have the option of using the device to text, or you can sync it through your phone and be able to type it, just with the letters.
I've never used it for my phone because I try not to use my phone too much.
I have the Garmin inReach, and I keep it in my truck all year long. I have a cabin in a remote location where there's no cell service, and I always have it. And it's really a simple matter. It's not a technological deal. You just turn the Bluetooth in your phone on, and you just need the app for it.
Yeah, that's what I've been.
And you can have pre-programmed messages. You can have you can go as deep as you want to.
Well, it's just easy to use. When I get to my cabin or someplace, I dictate messages and zing, they go. If you try and use these devices, they're very tedious.
How's that different from the Spot? Remember those when they came out?
Yeah, I've never,
The Spot's the one way.
The Spot I got interested in early on, then I found this and I thought, okay, beyond Spot.
You can't talk to people on a Spot. That's just an emergency rescue system.
They were the kind of the first.
I think it was kind of an earlier stage of this better technology. Okay.
What's the to the left of the Garmin? What is that? Is that a tripod?
Yeah, it's just they call it a monkey grip.
Okay.
So that's a camera mount and just grabs around stuff. So that's what that is. Okay. All right, next. Okay, so, and you can hit again. A lot of times it's just not about the lakes, and I've evolved more away from only lakes, but a lot of times people don't realize the benefit of, the outlets and inlets of lakes. This is Lake Louie. This is one of my favorite places to go to because it was quick and short and nearby. And this is in the fall, as you can tell. And what I love about the fall fishing in the Sawtooth and in the Frank Church and in almost everywhere in Idaho is, you don't have the bugs. And, it's cooler, so it's a little bit nicer to get in and out of there. And next slide. This is an example of the same lake in June. And this is where, spring fishing, where float tube really does pay the huge dividends. And I'm a big believer, which as you can probably see later on too, on why I love my float tube. I can't tell you how many times I've taken a float tube in long before this Wilderness Light Backpacker Pro that I like. The heavy, big float tubes, I hauled them into Soldier Lakes and people looked at me like I was a nut because I didn't have room in my pack, so I just inflated it and strapped it on the back and I looked like, a bull coming down the road. And then they were all, complaining, thinking, I'm such an idiot. And then I'm out there fishing, comfortable, smoking a cigar, catching fish. And they're out there trying to wade and beat the bushes and can't back cast. I mean, to me, it's one of the best things to take, in the backcountry.
Yeah, those things are kind of, I've done that. I'm like, even over in Yellowstone, they said that. I'm like, I said, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
My wife thought I was weird. Sometimes I couldn't fit through the trails, I could go sideways. Like,
yeah, yeah. This is just a nice little Bev Doodle type shot that I really like of Louis. So, and the point is here is when you're in the high country, you kind of have to be aware that we're at higher elevations, and so I'm glad you've done this before. You kind of just can read my mind here. But this is what you have to kind of go through. This was July, okay, and this was Josephine Lake, and it's like, really? We hiked all the way in here and hauled our float tubes and stuff in, and that was the only open water. So then we hiked back out, we drove across the valley, we went to another lake. So this is down at the lake. I call it a basin lake because I didn't think there was an outlet, but there is an outlet. So I don't know if that definition is very accurate anymore. The thing that I really want to stress in the interest of safety is that, this is not a sandy beach, at Payette Lake. And so another reason why I love float tubes so much is that when we start walking into these high mountain lakes, it looks all flat. The silt is there. It looks sandy. It looks flat. Looks firm. There are ankle breakers all over in here, okay? And a really, really sad story. We went into Loon Lake, which is one of my later pictures, not yet, and it was a really, really bad day at Loon Lake because this guy who was supposedly a highly experienced backcountry horseman wanted to go check out the airplane at Loon Lake. He took his horse into the water. Three shots later, and about a half hour or so after that, he comes walking out with the saddle. He had to kill his horse. Okay? So, not that we would have to do that to any one of our buddies, but really be aware that when you walk into these high mountain lakes, and I'll say even Lake Louie as a good example, right there at the dam. I mean, it looks flat. It looks safe. Trust me, it's not. Okay? That silt lays down there. There's logs that are crisscrossed all over in there, and they're ankle breakers. They're leg breakers. They're, there's dangers there. So really, really be cautious there. Which is why I like finding that sandy spot and getting in my float tube and kicking out where I'm safe. So,
Home Lake is 7,800.
7,800, okay. Thank you. I knew somebody would Google it in here. Thank you. So be careful of the lakes and wading in. I look for opportunities. Sometimes I'm a bit of a risk taker. My friend Eric and I at Hum Lake, this was at the far end. Another bit of advice to share with you is when you go to some of these high mountain lakes, just don't fish where the trail meets the lake. Because guess where everybody fishes? Get around it, okay? This is at the other end of the lake. And I thought, man, you know, I would really like to get some good back casting going. So on the next picture, you'll see me at the end of that log. So I walked all the way out there, and I probably netted 50 to 60 cuts from that spot. Because I was far enough out where I could never cast that far out from the shore, okay? Next one. So this is our friend, all right? Bert. And I think there's really something to say about, you know, spending the night at some of these lakes. And the next picture is, there he is. There was the prize that he got. That's a hog, all right? That's, I mean, there's no other way of saying it, so.
Now, Mike, you prefer inlets or outlets fishing?
Both can fish well. It really depends, you know, on the time of year. Your inlets will bring more oxygen and more food into a lake. Sometimes your outlets are going to be places that the spawning is going to be because there's more oxygen kind of going out and a little bit more current. So, okay. I'm in it for the wildlife. You know, weeks later, this lake was completely iced off, but this was July. And not this year. I don't know. There are 17 baby mergansers there. You know, and again, to me, experience the grass and the smells and things that we get. I mean, I can't believe it. I've counted them many times. Blown it up here, but the wildlife to me is the bonus of why we're out there. But you know, again, hiking the backpacking with 2 float. That was fresh. Really nice grayling at this particular After we had walked down that river, the stream of Johnson Creek, pictures, and then we walked back up, and my wife goes, "Look at this." That wasn't there when I walked by earlier. That I recommend, and just I find to be really good, what I believe to be, you know, dependable flies for these high mountain lakes. Plant life along the way, we've got the grouse whortleberries, and that's the pico spider huckleberries. If you don't stop and eat some of these along the way, I mean, you're really missing good high mountain lake. Salmonberries, also known as thimbleberries, depending on where you're from. You know, Cuddy there, the fish that we're after. Had a guy find this picture and asked if he could do the painting of it, and I have the first edition of that painting, all right, in my home. So, brookies, beautiful brookies we have around my wife and a lot of people don't realize this, but dog there, we've got some structures worth the highs, a big fish, Louis again, but at lower water, you've got the tiger muskies. I probably should add bass because, you know, Little Payette's got some really nice bass population area. So this is Hum Lake these days, and it's pronounced looking for signs. I mean, some of them are obvious. You know, a trail, more aggressive of a hike, or a cairn. Really, you know, a nice place to go to. You know, a blaze will usually be on 2 sides of trees, kind of like over 1,000 feet elevation. You see blazes that are way high up in trees. Okay, those are blazes that we get to deal with it again.
What's the elevation?
Why? Because there's 8 feet of snow. I don't remember. And where they're going into something close to places, these beaver dams, I'm guessing. And cut trees. And the reason I'd like to mention this is that if you're going in early season, or maybe July, and there's still a lot of snow on the ground, the cairns and the blazes might be the only things that you can tell where the trails are getting into these places, okay? So this is a really nice high mountain lake that I love going to. It's not easy to get there, but it's amazing how many people think that their only resource to go find fishing lakes are in fishing guidebooks. Okay? Margaret Fuller, all right? Scott Marchand. These are hiking books that go to a lot of lakes. So do your cross research and find these lakes, and then maybe go to Idaho Fish and Game and then look at stocking reports, all right? You're gonna find some gems out there that you will go to that only hikers are going to and fishermen aren't, okay? If you kind of expand your horizon a little bit. So to get to this lake, this is my wife on the left, and Eric and his wife there, and this is what we went into in July to get to that lake, okay? It was steep, and there was no trail, but the fishing was incredible, okay? This is another lake I went into solo. It's interesting, I've done this presentation at the expo a number of times, and I've had people come up to me and they go, "What lake was that?" And then I've had other people come up to me and told me that, "I'm really glad you didn't say what lake that was," okay? So I'm not going to say what lake it was, but this lake, not unlike many others, are literally at the tops of some of these mountain ranges that we have. I mean, literally hanging along the ridge lines, okay? So to get to this lake, that picture was taken from way up here at the top of the ridge. There's no designated trail going through this boulder field. And let me tell you, a lot of these boulders are bigger than cars. Or mini, or what do they call them? The little houses, mini houses. Next one. So this is another view right at the pass looking down at the lake. Okay, nice big cairn, as if I needed to have that to tell me where to go. Okay, so where you have to kind of get more comfortable, especially going cross-country or more cross-country-ish. There was really no path to this lake, okay? But see this? This is a sign of a cairn. There's another cairn. There's another one, all right? So you would look at these cairns to find your way up this boulder field to get to this lake, okay? So your cairns are your little road maps, and you have to connect the dots. When you're working a cairn type trail, and in this particular picture here, you'll see one cairn here, one there, and then another one, see way back there? Okay? If you walk far enough and you don't see another cairn, you need to start walking back to the other cairn until you can find the next dot to connect. Okay? So it takes some patience. It takes, you just can't just take, barreling on down through the forest, because that's how people get lost. So be patient, enjoy the moment, and be careful, okay? And again, literally, that lake, that's probably 2,000 feet down to the valley below, right over that edge there, and it's way up high, okay? When I went into this lake, it was August. Temperatures dropped drastically, and all the rain that I had gone through to get to this lake started freezing on all the rocks that I climbed down. I was prepared to spend the night there. I have a very trusting wife who kind of feels like if I'm not back by noon the next day, even if I'm day hiking in, then she'll start to worry. I was prepared to spend the night in this little cave, okay? I was catching fish, I had food, and I could build a fire. I was gonna be fine. I wasn't the least bit worried. So some lakes have got no trails to them, and that's where you just have to learn how to read your maps, read your compasses, or take your Garmin or what have you. And this is the benefit you get here. I was the only one there that day too. I kind of like that sort of thing. But the only other reason my wife didn't go on a lot of these is it's like 2 knee replacements, 3 times on the hip, a shoulder weight twice. It was just kind of like, you go. get away from me, But what a beautiful lake it was. And it doesn't really even have a name. I found it on a map. If you don't think there's lakes nearby, well, from the view of the ridge right before this lake was another lake. Okay? So I'll give you a clue. That's Granite Lake. So if you want to find the one I went to, do your research. Okay? Again, you know, it's for everybody. You know, I mean, we can take our kids in. You know, he took them in on the backpacks and they had a good time. I mean, that's nothing like fun right there. I mean, dirt. Okay. That was Hidden Lake that we went into with Eric and his kids. Gear for a day hike, kind of self-explanatory. Go ahead and get the next one. I like taking 2 fly rods in. John and anglers knows that occasionally I break a rod. And there's nothing worse than breaking a rod when you get into a lake and you've got no other rod to fish with. So, granted it's a little bit extra, but it's something that I like to do. A lot of times I'll take my other reel with the sinking line, but a sink tip line is another way of, you know, reducing gear and reducing weight. Okay? Next one. I don't know if you saw that last item on there. Okay, I like to take a beer in or two. Okay, so I developed this little system in my neoprene pack that if I take this package of frozen brats of 4, it keeps 2 beers perfectly cold. And you want to turn some, you know, turn some heads, hike in 5 miles and be the first one to crack open a cold beer. And it's like, what the hell? You know? So anyway, and I have this one spot that I have this little secret hidden rock that I pull over and I cook my brats right there. And then I put the rock back over when I leave. And so anyway, you know, to me that's all part of the good times. So the evolution of bike packing. Okay, this was a trip I did on the Deschutes, steelhead fishing. Had a great trip, all right? As I started wanting to do more in this particular arena, I started kind of changing because some of the trails I like mountain biking, and this was actually before I actually took up serious mountain biking. So this is, and if you're not familiar with the Deschutes, but basically, you know, that's a railroad trail. So you got 3% grade, you can zoom up there, and with a bob, you know, that's what this trailer is called, is a bob. You can zoom up there, and yep, I had a couple frozen beers next to my frozen T-bone that I really enjoyed that night up on the Deschutes. So the mountain biking allows you to get a little bit deeper in, a little bit more extreme. So I started mountain biking with just the day pack, okay? Now this bike came into my life, okay? And this was my first day trip into a lake near McCall. And so on that bike, I had all this gear. And this is actually one of the cover photos to Wilderness Light backpacking, the Backpacking Pro float tubes. I love that product because, again, I love my Orbis gear, but my Orbis waders were this size. This is that float tube, got 3.2 pounds, okay, with double action inflator, okay. So this is a little bit more extreme. This is a multi-day, this is a 4-day trip of my gear, okay? All that is on that bike, okay? A little bit more comfortable than on my back, okay? And even mountain biking up a trail, as much as it hurts and you breathe heavy, even in the lowest gear mountain biking, I can still mountain bike faster than I can hike. And I'm a pretty fast hiker. I can typically average, if I'm backpacking, I usually average about 2 miles an hour, okay? Uphill, downhill, 70-pound pack, what have you, okay? In my lowest gear on this bike here, I'm averaging 3 miles per hour, okay? Even going uphill, okay? So all that gear is on there. That's, you can go to the next one. So this is one of the lakes I went into, okay? One of 3 lakes I bike packed into. Okay, next one. I was the only one at this camp. I mean, I was the only one. I didn't see anybody for 4 days. Okay. Next one. And I think this is where there's a video. And it should, yeah. And it's only about a minute long if you guys want. Are we okay on time? Okay. And there may not be sound, but this will give you, this is new to my presentation, okay? In other words, that's my bike, my Camelback that I rode in on there with, so I'll give the narration as if the sound was working. Okay, see the lake right there? Okay, there's my float tube, my fly rods, all right? My buddy did some arrows, some animation. My fly rods, my waders, okay? These are my waders now, okay? That tent fits in that bag right there, all right? 2-man tent. It was only 6 more ounces for a 2-man tent as opposed to 1-man tent. I like having the extra space, okay? And because I didn't want to leave my beer behind in the truck to get hot, then there it is. So I figured, well, why leave that behind, right?
Mike, what do you think about the backpacking hammocks now that they have nowadays?
I'm not a hammock person because I like sleeping on my side or my stomach. And hammocks don't work for me, so. Okay, next slide. It's okay, it's new for us both.
No, it's just, it's done.
Okay, so this is at Rainbow Lake. This is my camp setup at Rainbow Lake. And many times I don't even take a tent, but I'm trying to dial in some of my logistics and gear and everything, but that was my camp setup at Rainbow Lake, my float tube, my tent, and the lake right there. Okay, thanks. I talked about the berries earlier. Huckleberries on the left, those were the biggest grouse whortleberries I have ever seen, ever, in the backcountry. And if you've never eaten grouse whortleberries, you've probably been walking by them time and time and time again because they're hardly ever higher than your ankles and they hide underneath the little tiny leaves. And I can't tell you how many people that I've known who've lived here all their life and have never even seen them. And yet I know they've walked right by them because of the places that they've shared with. So, couple of nice pictures of some fish I caught at these 3 lakes that I mountain biked into. Okay, beautiful fish. I never expected to catch a rainbow, a brookie, and a cutthroat all in the same lake. Okay, next. And there's some nice fish in there. Okay.
How much of a ride far in on your bike? Is that 8 miles, 10 miles?
It was about 8 miles. Okay, next. Okay, here, this is another video. And I'm not used to some of this new format.
So were you able to ride the whole 8 miles, or were you off and pushing?
I was doing some pushing going uphill. Yeah.
It's just, what determines, hey, I can get in there with my mountain bike, or I can't? I mean, topo,
Topos, trail guides, and so on. And just thinking, well, it's downhill all the way out.
Yeah.
You like that riot rod?
It has its place.
Oh, yeah, it does.
So has anybody ever heard of the rare rod before?
I hiked into Soldier Lakes with 2 rods last year. That was one of them. And it broke right at the handle, right
really?
at the connection point. And I just sent them an email and they sent me the new piece. They've got a new section that you can buy now that's more flexible.
Yeah.
$75, you replace that thing.
So this was the rare rod, and I'm kind of a gear guy, and I love my traditional rods. And basically, if I'm going into a group of lakes, and if you want, you can click that, or did you already do it? This was the release of that fish I caught. This rare rod. And I got it mainly because I've got an RV and I just haven't been able to justify, you know, getting all the racks and for the different reels and stuff that I have. But here's basically how, this is kind of like Tenkara on steroids, okay? That's all it takes to be ready to fish. Wow. Okay? I got this for 2 reasons. Number 1, for cruising up and down rivers. Okay? And you're going to see another reason why I really like this rod. But there's no eyelets on it. Now, winter fishing, icing up, this ain't going to work. It doesn't shoot line very well, right? I mean, you know, but for getting some line out and being in the float tube, and I wanted to kind of, you know, do some testing on it. You know, I wanted to kind of get a feel for it, okay? So again, you know, I'd rather take a traditional rod into a group of lakes because I'm going to get in there, I'm going to set up the rod, and then I'm going to fish all these lakes for all these days. I don't need a rod like this, but for running up and down, and if you're a little bit limited, you know, on space in your RV, or you just want a good pack rod to maybe put in your suitcase to fly into Reno and then go fish at the Truckee or something. I mean, this could be, you know, a really good option for you. And I like the convenience of it, and that's all it takes, and it just, you know.
And that's all a la carte inside?
Yeah.
Basically?
Yeah.
How is it with TSA?
Pardon?
How is it with TSA? Can you fly with it?
I don't fly it anymore.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I guess, how to redfish. I haven't tried checking it in on TSA. I guess it would depend on whether or not you're checking it or you know, doing carry-on.
I use it as a mine though, I always have a carry-on on the side there. They just asked me if I have any hooks. I said, nope. I said, that's in the bag.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, there you have it. So that's another example of the gear I took. You know, again, you know, this is kind of like a holster. So you have your dry bag, you pull your gear out, and then, you know, food, clothing, quick to get to, and quick to drop back into the bag. And there's a holster for both sides of the bike, and then all the other spaces I can strap the gear onto. It's Lava Butte Lakes. So I hit 5 lakes on this particular trip. Okay. This is my wife just, you know, bike packing in for a day of fishing on her birthday, 6 weeks after her second knee replacement. So she's a pretty tough gal. And me coming in behind, and sometimes in the shadows you can't see those little hidden dangers, and yeah, I crashed. Speaking of crashing, okay, so earlier on, you know, there's times you just have to do the hike a bike, you know, and to me, it's always safer to, you know, get off. I'm not out there to be macho. I'm not out there to, you know, to prove anything. I'm out there to get into a lake. So when in doubt, you know, be cautious, okay? Next slide. And that's, you know, again, that was October, and we were the only 2 people at that lake. My wife. Just doesn't get much better than that. Okay. Again, this is day hiking. This is on the way up to that lake, and that's Payette Lake down below. That's Ponderosa Park right there, in case you don't recognize it. So, somebody asked about the sea sesh. There's a group called CITRA, Central Idaho Trail Riders Association. I wished Simba would develop a little bit better relationship with CITRA. Simba is the Central Idaho Mountain Biking Association. CITRA goes into a lot of these trails. These are guys on 2-wheel motorcycles, okay? And one of their passions that they do, or just a good reason to get out, is they clear a lot of these trails. So they'll go in with a half a dozen of these motorcycles, and they'll have 2 and sometimes 3 chainsaws, and they will leapfrog and they'll clear a lot of these trails for us, okay? They had cleared this trail, the Seasesh River Trail, about 2 weeks before I decided to mountain bike it. This is a Black Diamond mountain bike trail, so not for the faint of heart. That's the river down there. So if you don't know how to read a topo map, you might think, wow, that trail's right next to the river, because it's only 50 feet away, but it's 500 feet down, okay? All right. So that gives you an idea of this trail is more narrow than the handlebars on this bike, okay? One of the best trips I've ever taken on my bike, okay? So sometimes the trail gets down close to the river, which is where a Tenkara or a rare rod I think would be very beneficial, because I can jump off my bike, I can pull it out of my camelback, I can jump down and fish some holes and jump back on my bike. I'm not having to put a reel on, restring a rod, pull it all out, okay? Because I did take my traditional rod, see? And by the way, I learned another lesson on that trip. Don't put it on that way, because it's wider than my handlebars and it's lower than my handlebars. And I can't tell you how many times I just damn near over-ended myself, okay? So I would put the rods coming out the back from now on, okay? Next slide. Another example would be hiking, okay? Because we had a windstorm, and this was all part of the 1994 fires that we had, I had to throw my bike probably in the neighborhood of over 100 downfalls on that trail. So yes, I was very tired when I got done for my day, you know, and got ready to camp, okay? But just beautiful country. Okay, it's a little bit smoky. We have some fires in the area. This gives you an idea, again, too, the trail, proximity to the river. So you don't necessarily have all those fishing opportunities you might think you have. I mean, I read my topos, and I kind of, you know, understood that there were plenty of times I was going to be way up away from the river. But that just pretty well, you know, drilled it down for me after experience. Okay? And there's places, again, you just don't want to try and ride through. I mean, those rocks are unforgiving, okay? I don't want to break an arm. I'm trying to be macho. I'm there by myself, by the way, okay? And, you know, talk about a little bit of safety about by yourself. You know, carry a whistle. Don't necessarily put it on your bike or put it on your pack. I found these. This is made by Survival Frog, and this is cartilage on a wristband. If I end up going over the edge, I've got my whistle right here on me in case I have to blow it, in case I hear somebody riding by and I need to get rescued. Okay. This is another kind of fun little video. heading home. This gives you an idea of what it looks like coming downhill. And that bike can jump over logs. Kind of glad you don't have the audio because you can't hear me breathing so hard.
You're going downhill, it shouldn't have to be that much. It's like, woo!
Well, you know, when you're wrestling a 30-pound bike and 40 pounds of gear, even going downhill, you are really having to stay on this narrow trail that's more narrow than your handlebars. So it still is a bit of work. And then you come up to that, and then you got to hike it up over again. So. That's Loon Lake. That's my son on a ride we did a long time ago. Me and Eric, you know, sometimes you can combo up some of these lakes. So what we did is that that's my wife's bike that she loaned him, but we rode the 3.5 miles up to the junction, and then because you can't ride the bikes all the way to 20-mile lakes, so we rode up to the junction, and then we hiked into 20-mile lakes and back out the same day. And I tell you, we were beat just enough that riding these bikes downhill the last 3.5 miles was really a blessing, okay? So sometimes you can kind of combo things up a little bit. And we're kind of coming to the end, you know. One of the things I, you know, kind of mentioned in the beginning and kind of want to close out with is that, you know, if you want to get away from the people, then, you know, then you go the extra mile. Gear. Oh, one thing I did want to show you too, and you know, we started getting into shaving ounces. So this is a fishing net, because I was really worried about breaking my nice wooden net. Okay. Rare makes these, okay? This version is the same as this version. But I learned the hard way at Hazard Lake that these suckers sink, okay? They're handy, but they sink, okay? So I went back 3 weeks later on a calm day and found this net at the bottom of Hazard Lake. But I went back prepared with my skin diving gear, and I snagged this sucker out of the bottom. And then my neighbor made this. The difference between this pouch and this leather pouch was 4 ounces. And that doesn't seem like much. But when you start shaving 4 ounces here, and 2 pounds here, or a pound here, and you're worried about size and capability of strapping it onto a bike, okay? It all adds up. I love this net because it's just so compact. It folds right back up, goes right back in the pouch, and I don't need to worry about strapping it on my bike, because the other thing I learned in doing Lava Butte Lakes and Rainbow Lake is I decided to stop back at the truck because there was 2 cold beers there. And I'm waiting there, and here comes this other mountain biker, and I learned that when it comes to bike packing, put everything in bags and cinch your bags down. Don't strap your booties onto the outside of your dry bags, because things loosen up, okay? So put everything in a bag, cinch everything down in a bag, and you won't lose anything, because this guy showed up with my booties, okay? And which I was very thankful for, okay? So the things I've kind of learned as I'm evolving and developing in this new passion of mine, bike packing into high mountain lakes, I absolutely love it, you know? And I think it's just...
When you talk about your waders there, I think you're using the full, have you ever tried to just use the pants ones? So that cuts back on weight there. Oh, you're afraid that we're going to get water coming down?
I worry about water getting down. I mean, these go up high. If I wanted to wet wade, I mean, these are Patagonia Swift Current waders here. And like I said, I mean, these are, you know, not much bigger than an Nalgene bottle, okay? This is my sleeping pad for my, for my sleeping bag, So I've really tried, it seemed like when I was backpacking, my big old Gregory backpack, I could just cram everything and a baby in there, Whereas now with the bike packing, size and weight, volume and weight seems to be my biggest concern. So I've tried to high grade slowly but surely into smaller, volume gear, things that won't break, okay, that I can shove into bags, lightweight fins, and, and I like my creature comforts, so, and this is solar powered, or it can be recharged with my Ford Patriot, okay? So little things like that. I hate to say this, but I've never purchased a pair of these, but I've got 4 pair now. People tend to leave these at lakes. It's just incredible. But so much lighter than my other waders. So, any questions? Yes.
Food.
Food. When it comes to food, I like snacking and grazing. So I like taking gorp. In case you don't know what that is, gorp is an old mountain climber's term from the Yosemite days when I was climbing, called granola, oatmeal, raisins, and peanuts, aka trail mix. So I'll graze on that. Jerky. When it comes to dehydrated meals, I like taking certain things that might go really well with a fish. Okay? When I went into that group of 6 lakes, I went and harvested some grouse whortleberries and some huckleberries, and I had some, like a muesli mix that was already kind of moist in a pack. I stuffed the trout with those, wrapped them in tin foil, and unfortunately, I didn't have anybody to taste test, but trust me, it was really, really good. So, I'm not a big breakfast kind of a person, so, Cliff Bars, that kind of thing. And I always prepare for the, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. So I always take a little bit more than what I might need, only because I'm there by myself most of the time. So.
What about your water purifier system? What do you use?
I just now bought, because my wife is with her matching bike, similar to mine anyway, I just bought a new REI 2-liter gravity feed water purifying system, because I realized that with 2 of us we're going to need a little bit more volume. But most of the time, don't do as I say, okay? But most of the time I have never purified my water. I've always just drank responsibly, tried to look for clean water. In all of my years growing up in national parks, and all my years of fly fishing Idaho, and everywhere else I've gone to, I've only got Giardia 1 time. Now, that doesn't say that you should do it, but I would rarely treat my water. But when I would take kids or other people, or in this case my wife, we're going to purify a little bit more, and I have a nice, it's on order, should be here this week, a gravity feed, type water system, so we can add to our water bottles and cooking and stuff like that, and not have to worry about it.
Do you check fire closures before you take your trip so you can cook, or do you?
I do, but my whole stove unit, including the, this is my cook stove unit right here. This is everything, okay? And I can show you to you real quick on how compact this is. So I like this because it gives me a smaller version. This is the actual stove right here. And then here's the canister. And because I'm mountain biking, I put a sock around it so it wouldn't rattle and ruin the Teflon coating on the inside. So this is my total stove cooking system right here.
What is it?
Works great.
What is it? What's the brand?
I would have to look it up. I've had it a few years now. But I mean, this little stove, I mean, you know,
Is it propane?
I mean, it's pretty compact. Goes right on the canister, you know, like this. So very compact. It's piezo, so I don't need a lighter or match. Put it on the canister, put my stove on, and these little feet kick out too for extra stability. And I tell you, it'll boil that water in about 90 seconds.
Propane?
Yeah, well, it's not propane, it's the
Butane.
butane, yeah. Butane works better at different elevations and stuff.
Some of those canisters, you could refill it with the butane.
Yeah, now they've got, I haven't got one yet, but I think I'm gonna get one, but now you can refill these suckers too.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll give them.
You got one?
Environmentalist friendly.
So, any other questions?
Well, yeah, that,
I love your picture of a backpack with the baby on her back. My hero is Margaret Fuller, and she used to go backpacking with her babies, and she would backpack a playpen
Oh, yeah?
for the kids.
She's great and, you know, such a great resource, you know. And again, some of my favorite secret lakes I found on Marchand or Margaret Fuller's books. So I've only recently become with Scott Marchand, you know, familiar with his information. But yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for inviting me.
Appreciate it, Mike. Great job.
Thank you.
And we'll be auctioning off the bike here a little later.